welcome to the MSL Lead Chronicles. It's a podcast on a mission in medical affairs and leadership. I'm Mary Morton, and along with my buddy, Chad Fellers, we're going to have casual talk about important topics and challenges in leadership. So whether you want to elevate or further develop as a leader, or your ambition is to transition to a leadership role, you've tuned into the right podcast, and we are so glad you're here. Stay tuned. Welcome back to part 2 of Building a Culture of Psychological Safety with our special guest, Deanna Tucker. Let's pick up where we left off. Well, that actually brings up a really interesting challenge, Deanna. It's like one of the things that they say, some people, it's even once the leader has said this, we want you to speak up. We want you to offer up ideas. Some people just don't. And it's not because they don't feel safe to, it's that they don't. So you keep people on a virtual meeting for an hour and they have a great idea. And maybe they're just like, I've already been on this for an hour. I'm not going to bring up my idea because that's going to just make this call go even longer. I mean, that's not even something I thought about, but maybe it's something we should be thinking about.
I think too, everybody should have their camera on. Unless there's some technical glitch that they can't have their camera on. But I think that is important. Otherwise, you're just talking to a box and you have no idea what they're doing. And if you're the speaker, you've lost your audience, whereas whenever you're in person, you can pick up on those nonverbal cues and whatnot. But, I think that having your camera on, keeping the content concise and relevant, for those situations where you really want to say something, but you see 4 people have their hand up and they're going through the queue. Encourage people to type out their questions in the chat function. They may not be answered live, but you could go back and say, I know we didn't get to everybody, email me or put your question or comment in the chat function. At least then everybody who's on the call can see that ongoing conversation that's happening in the chat.
Oh, I like that because, what if somebody's not afraid, but, they're nervous about speaking up in front of their peers, but they're not afraid to type it out. That's
Yeah.
Well, that just goes back to like our learning styles, right? I think about even modes of communication. I think just thinking back at just different team members, some love email and they will read every email that comes through. Some don't check email for 2 days, it seems, right? To respond, they respond better to text. Some people are visual learners. Some people want the relational components, etc. So how do you, I think it's important to understand some of those things, and then that does require some intentionality to follow up, maybe on one-on-one conversations to try to spearhead some of that. Whether maybe it's not speaking up and that, but hey, we're going to talk about this. I definitely need your feedback. So if you can send it to me or something like that offline, we can make sure it's something that's contributed to the conversation. That's one thing. And I also think too, is we have to be intentional with our time when we are scheduling calls. When Deanna, to your point, when the COVID era, everyone went remote, for some reason, I think it became, we can pack the day full of meetings now to make sure that but we couldn't even do our job because we have a meeting to prepare for a meeting and then a debrief on the meeting that we just had as well too. What are some things that can be communicated in a different way that don't require face-to-face on screens, etc.? And then the time that you have together, it's being intentional to really create that culture of learning, feedback, innovation, etc. too. So all different things that I think we've learned maybe through not so good experiences as well too. I've definitely lost my team before because of the several calls that I put on the books one week or things like that. So you have to definitely adjust, but maybe those are some tips we can think about as well.
Yeah, I think those are good. And often, um, if you're in a situation or a meeting where you truly want a lot of feedback, and say, the call's an hour long, not everybody had the opportunity to speak. I think sending that email out to the team and saying, we were short on time, a lot of great ideas shared. I know there's still some great ideas to be shared, and allowing people to follow up via email when they've had a chance to kind of think things through. I'm the queen of 2 hours later, you're like, why didn't I think of that? Oh, that would have been a great question. And then they're like, oh, well, it's moot point now. So I think, really anytime people should feel very secure about whether it's emailing or maybe it's during your next one-to-one with someone who reports to you, is get that feedback. What did you think about the call? What could we do different? Did you have anything to share? Or, even say you were kind of quiet. Is everything okay with you? I've certainly had days at work where I am not my normal self. And sometimes you can be heavily judged by that. And people have no idea what's going on in your life outside of work. But sometimes it can be so distracting that we're a different person when we're at work. And I think whenever we see that in the people who we know, is just say, hey, are you okay? Is everything okay? Because sometimes life beats on us hard and we can't bring our best self to work. And that's okay. Because, man, if you don't have anything going on in your life that's not going to affect you at work,
Oh,
wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's funny? I actually, one of my clients that I was working with, they were telling me about her VP of Medical Affairs, and she's very passionate about having a culture of psychological safety. And so she came into an existing organization where most of the people are already in place, and she basically started out with, kind of laying all the groundwork and saying, in addition to all of that, saying, I know you guys don't live at work. I know you have families, and the work-life balance is really important to everyone, because if you're not finding a way to find the harmony between work and home, then they're going to both suffer. And so she was giving like a presentation at a POA meeting or something, and just in front of the MSL team. And while she's talking, her phone's going off, and she goes, "Oh, sorry, that's my son." And so she keeps talking, and then the phone rang again, and she's like, she looks, she goes, "I'm really sorry, you guys." And they said, "No, you go take that call. You can't preach it and not live it." And they held her to it. And I just love that story so much, and from the top down, making that happen. I just love that story.
That is an awesome story. And I think it is a reminder of, regardless of your title, you're a human being. I can't tell you the times that I was boarding an airplane and my child's daycare would call. It was like the universe knew. It was like, of course, because I'm boarding an airplane. And you're just, or, whatever it is that's going on. And I, as a team leader, I always had work-life balance in the back of my mind, because on my team, I had people who were going through some significant challenges. And I just told them, I'm like, work will be here when you're ready to come back for it. How can we support you if you need to be off a week or so? I mean, what do we need to do? And I think that whenever you have that latitude to just be able to say, whatever's going on with personal life, I can take care of it. And I've even seen where in a lot of companies, a lot of the benefits are structured around how to best support employees, where a company that I recently interviewed with, they pay full health insurance and the deductible for their employees and all dependents. And I said, did I hear you right? She said, yes. She said, that is a big stressor for people. And if we can take that off the board, then that is good. I had never heard of that before. I was really impressed. Yeah.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
So
we
I think a lot of companies are getting to where, it's like it's not just about the job or the compensation, but it's like what programs and philosophies do we have in place to support individuals? But Mary, to your point, that has to come from the top down. You know, I can remember listening to the executive committee, and the chief financial officer was talking about some really significant family situation that they had go on with the health of one of their children. And, just hearing him go through that, I was like, wow, he may be a chief level, but he's dealing with some of the same stuff I have to deal with, and it just kind of leveled the playing field, if you will, you know.
still
That's good. It's putting the corporate mission statement in many ways, right? Or what you would see about culture on a web page. It's putting it into action is what I'm hearing too, right? And it's incumbent on leadership to really set that tone as well, and hold ourselves accountable as much as we would to others as well too. If we don't put I guess that's my mantra really for 2024. I don't know if I've shared that with you, Deanna. I think I have with you, Mary. I've got to learn how to put my oxygen mask on first, and I don't do that really well. But before I can really impact others' lives, I have to make sure I am taking care of myself as well too. That feels really selfish, but the reality is, if I want to be able to give, I've got to have a supply to be able to give, and that is only one way to do that, is to be able to take care of of yourself first as well too. So anyway, I still feel weird saying that, to be honest with you. That seems still so foreign, but it
I
really
say
is
that
true.
all the time. Put your own oxygen mask on first, because if you're dead, you can't put it on your kid, right?
Fair enough.
You can't put it on
Fair
the
enough.
person in the seat next to you.
Yeah, if your tank is empty, you don't have anything to go to. And it is hard because, like you said, Chad, it makes you feel like you're, being selfish and that you're only looking out for yourself. But one of the things that became clear to me when I was when I was the team leader, not an individual contributor, is that if I go down, the whole team goes down, and if I don't have enough of my tank filled, how can I help others? And it is a struggle because I think as a team leader, we put our team first always. It's not about us. It is really about our primary customer is our team. And to think about, let me put my oxygen mask on first, you're like, oh, that just sounds so foreign, but it's true. It's
Yeah.
true.
She
Yeah.
quoted you from last
You
week.
did. I was about to say,
I
we
see
actually,
the smile on your face.
yes, that was great.
So
That's great.
why don't we get into the last takeaway, because this is the one I'm ironically very curious about, and that is, creating the culture of curiosity. So how do you support that? How do you create that?
You want to go first, Chad?
You want me to? Okay,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, so it does go. I mean, I feel like we're a broken record in ways, but I'll try to take a little additional spin on this. One of the things thinking about is asking a lot of questions when we talk about asking or to our team members about whether it's processes, whether it's about their thoughts on a certain matter, etc. I actually go back to the Insights presentation from a couple years ago from the MSL Society, the Insight Workshop. One of the things that was a part of that presentation that I got to lead that I included was from Harvard Business Review, and it was around relearning the art of asking questions. And it was so fascinating. First, it was the number of questions that kids ask to their parents, right? So in this poll, they interviewed, I think, 200 or some odd clients. Those with children estimated that 70 to 80% of their kids' dialogues with others were comprised of questions, right? They're seeking to understand, to increase their knowledge, to understand the world around
Your
them.
favorite W word.
That's right. That's right. The why. That's right. It's interesting. So 70 to 80% of the dialogue was questions. Those same clients said that only 15 to 25% of their own interactions consisted of questions. So where does that gap come from? And why do we feel like the older we get, the more we should know? And it's almost like closed-minded versus being open-minded and trying to really learn. So I think the more that we can do that, the more that we can set the tone by asking questions will help enable that curiosity of our team. Because think about it, I mean, we're all scientists. When you think about the scientific method, right? I mean, it's birthed out of curiosity. Can I make a change? Will this impact change in some way? So anyway, just trying to really reinforce and reward questions, but I have to first set the tone by asking those and being willing to listen to hear versus listening just to respond. So that's my take on it. What about you, Deanna?
Yeah, I was thinking of, you go from childhood where, we can all remember having small children. Why? And you're just like, because I said so, and then you get to your adult life. And I was thinking, okay, anybody who's been through pharmacy school, medical school can remember whenever you're a student or a resident and you're getting hammered by your attending. And sometimes it's not such a great environment. So you end up just like, okay, I'm never going to speak up again because someone has like slapped you or humiliated you. And I think probably some of those life circumstances definitely contribute to that change. But as leaders, I think it's up to us. Like, I have often told people, I am not the smartest person in the room, never have been, never will be. And I think sometimes sharing openly, like, I don't understand this. Like, I'm curious as to why XYZ, or can you help me understand this part? And just showing, because some people might think, oh, you've been at the company for 5 years, you know all the data, you know all the stuff. And it's like, I don't, and especially if you get away from certain things that you worked in all the time, I think that it is incumbent on the leader to just, show that vulnerability, show that, hey, I don't know this. Yeah, I've been around for a while, but that doesn't mean or maybe I did know it and I've forgotten it because I have a terrible memory. So I think, just kind of reinvigorating, I'm curious about something, or help me understand this, or why is that way? I wouldn't have thought about it, or my mind is thinking this process, but clearly that isn't how it works. Help me get back on the right track.
Yeah, you
Remember
can
the
even do
text
that even
message
as
I
an
sent
individual.
you, Deanna? Oh, I'm sorry, Chad.
Oh, I was just gonna say you can even do that as an MSL as well too, right? I mean, just even from a practical standpoint of engaging a key customer, or maybe it's a tough, like I can think about those used to be the things that I feared the most, these interactions with providers who literally just tried to make my life miserable when I went in there. And so I wanted to avoid. I came to learn to really enjoy those, because to flip it on its head and really ask and even be vulnerable with them as well too. Like, we have this, here's this, help me understand, how would you discuss this? Or I would love to see how you would utilize this resource. That helps that buy-in from theirs as well too. So I mean, you don't have to be in a true leadership role to be able to implement some of these things that will really open up the door for reciprocity. So I love this. I think it's fascinating. The more we ask questions, it's not a sign of weakness. If anything, in that particular example, these providers have been working on something for 20 plus years, right? And they're still wondering about the answers to questions. It's good to be able to show those types of things in certain situations. So I think you can never go wrong with asking good questions.
I agree. And, if you're subject matter expert on something, or you have been working on something, you've been in, a therapeutic area for a long time, people like to talk about what they know. And so if you have an MSL or anybody who says, help me understand this the way you understand it, people love to do that. I know being an MSL, clinicians love to talk about their day to day. It kind of is one of those great equalizers of like, just asking questions out of just pure curiosity. Because the last thing that anybody wants to work with is someone who feels like they know it all. Because you're like, oh, yeah.
When they don't know it
They
all.
don't, when they
Right.
don't. And even like, I will often marvel, like, when you're at a conference and you have some of the top thought leaders in the room and say they're doing like a panel discussion. I love to watch them banter back and forth and say, that's a really good point. Help me understand this, or just how they dialogue with each other. I think it's something that we can all kind of learn from, because we look at them as like, well, you're a top thought leader. You know this, but they some of them will be first to say, I don't know it all, and they're learning from their peers. And I think I often love to just watch the conversation dynamics whenever you get a group of individuals together, whether they're top thought leaders or maybe they're the VP level at your company, and they're tossing ideas back and forth.
That's cool.
My favorite, pro con debates, right? That's what we're talking about. That's some of those things at the conferences are the best. So I agree with you, Deanna. Those are really good. All right, Mary, you keep trying to speak up, and we're talking over you. Go ahead. What you got?
Oh no, I don't have anything to share. I actually was just going to give an example of me feeling psychologically safe with Deanna. If you remember the text that I sent you a couple weeks ago,
Mhm.
and I think I prefaced it with, "Don't tell Chad." No, that's not what I said.
I was about to say, wait, why was this not a group text?
Well,
I think
actually,
you were
I was
like,
just
this is going to
looking.
be a silly question or something. I'm like, no, it's not. It's a very valid question.
Yeah, it started with dumb question, and then I asked her the question. And it was around gene therapy, and then I said it's so confusing, and she was so polite back. Of course, she always is. She said, not a dumb question at all. And then she explained a couple things. And then I said, oh, geez, I feel dumber than I thought, or I'm dumber than I thought. But I mean, maybe I'm not supposed to know that kind of stuff, but I do now, and I'm smarter, and I'm so glad I asked the question. So I'm not a gene therapy expert, but I do know something.
That's right. It is confusing because I was reading on the latest sickle cell gene therapy. I had no idea it was ex vivo. I'm like, oh, I just assumed it was gene transfer therapy with what I'm familiar with. Wasn't that way at all. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah, so that was actually what the question was about, because
Yeah.
I wasn't really sure. Yeah, but because
There's all
I
these
know, because there's
different,
two different ones, it's like Vertex's gene therapy is a CRISPR gene
yes,
transfer, right?
the CRISPR,
Editor, sorry.
CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing, which is
Yeah.
very different from gene transfer therapy, which is very different from the ex vivo lentiviral gene therapy. It's like, wow, this is all new language,
Yeah. And
for many of us.
thanks to you, I put together a training for my team to show them what the difference was. And I basically said, CRISPR is the only thing like CRISPR. And so I said, so don't worry about thinking it's anything else. See, I got to dumb it down for, not for them, but for me.
Oh, I have to totally, I have to be like, okay, how would you describe this to elementary school children?
Yeah.
Let me get it at that level, then I can build on it.
Mm.
So we have hit all of our takeaways at this point, and it has been such an awesome conversation. The point for everybody is, we accomplish these things and we end up doing it right. We set the stage where you're going to have a really engaged team that is going to ask for input. They're going to participate. And I think a good lesson for leaders, you guys tell me if you'd agree, is if you want a team that's comfortable and willing to admit that they've made a mistake, maybe we have to do that first, and be comfortable admitting when we make a mistake. And as leaders, also asking good questions. And then, as in the example we discussed with the teammate that kind of was being a little bit of a negative Nancy, is you have to respond productively and positively and handle it with care, which you both spoke so awesomely to. I guess before I get into a couple things, or one last thing, I just want to remind everybody that if you enjoy the podcast, please share with your friends. And again, if you didn't like it, don't say anything.
An email.
Yeah, say nothing. Say nothing. But before Chad sends us off, I think maybe we're all used to that it is time for random questions. And this time on the hot seat, it's Deanna.
I had a feeling it was going to be me.
Well, it's always been Chad, and he keeps not getting off the hook.
Tired of being on the hot seat.
Yeah. So I have two questions for you.
Okay.
And I'm sort of embarrassed to say I know the answer to the first one. But it's for our guests to get to know about you. So are you a dog person or a cat person?
Very much a dog person.
Yes, I knew that. And then, do you listen to Spotify? Do you use Spotify?
I don't listen to Spotify, but I have my Apple Podcasts. I've got my music on my phone, my favorites list and stuff like that.
Okay, so maybe we'll go there. So, like, are you familiar with people talking about their Spotify Wrapped that has like their top 5 artists that they listen to all year? You ever heard about that?
I haven't. See, I'm not very innovative.
Okay, so we'll just pretend like I didn't ask about your Spotify Wrapped.
Okay.
But who are the top 5 musical artists you listen to the most? I know one of them for sure.
Yeah. So, from the country western standpoint, it would be Eric Church. I love him.
You love
I
Eric.
have seen him every time he's been in Dallas, Fort Worth. I have traveled to go see that man in concert. So he's definitely one of the top. When I think about what I listen to, like if I'm working out or well, usually I'm listening to podcasts whenever I'm walking because I'm trying to walk and learn at the same time. But I very much love my 80s. I love Journey. I love Def Leppard. It's like all these bands that are now coming back to tour. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like my phone music is coming to life here. I do like new stuff like Dua Lipa, love her stuff. But I guess I'm still kind of an old soul when it comes to my music. I still love the classic rewind, where you get into, the 80s. So
Yeah, so I will tell you, Tracy Johnson at Symbio has seen Def Leppard recently, and she gives them all the thumbs up that she can.
awesome.
I want to go. That'd be fun.
Wouldn't that
And
be fun?
yeah, and she said that I can't think of what his name is. Joe, the lead singer. She said he's
Oh, Jack Blades. No, no, it's not. That's
Jack
not
Blades.
me.
That's Night Ranger.
Which we have concert tickets to go see them in March at
Night
Billy
Ranger?
Bob, Night Ranger. I'm
Sister
so excited.
Christian. Heck yeah.
Yes, yes,
Wow.
yes.
It's great.
But I forget the lead singer's name of Def Leppard.
I think it's Joe something.
I think it is Joe something, but I love them. I love Def Leppard. Makes me happy.
Yeah. All right. Very good. So I got to plug one of my favorite podcasts that I listen to, aside from MSL Lead Chronicles. There's a podcast called Symptomatic,
Oh,
and it's like a medical mystery. And So, you can kind of listen to, and then maybe you can kind of figure out how to diagnose the person before the end. So I love doing that.
Very cool.
All right. So she handled the random question.
That was pretty easy. I mean, it wasn't like a would you rather. I mean, I mean, she did handle it great. Let's be clear. I'm not taking away from her answers. I think they're
Little
great.
softball
I'm not
question.
doing a
They were
would-
kind of softball. I mean,
Oh.
we must want her to come back. I don't know.
Yes, that's yeah. I don't have to be afraid of the random question.
It's a little hot. I still have my space heater on, even though I don't really need it right now because it's warm outside. Winter
Oh.
warm.
So, Mary, any other pearls of wisdom or any other questions you want to ask before we wrap things up?
No, I think this has been amazing, and I have to say that I've made 2 pages worth of notes. You guys had a lot of awesome things that I am planning on doing a little bit more research on, including multipliers. I want to check out that book.
Yeah,
So.
me too. Me too. That sounds really good. Thanks for sharing that, Deanna. And thanks so much for taking time out of your day to join us. The things that you shared, I think, are really going to make an impact for our listeners. It's always great to see you, to hang out. I'll look for my Night Ranger ticket in the mail. It's coming sometime soon. So thank you in advance for that, for my birthday, since y'all called out my birthday as well too.
I hope you have a great one.
But no worries, because I'm getting older, so I'm going to forget that you said that, had that conversation anyway, right? With my memory. So everybody will be good. So thanks again for chiming in. Thanks again to our listeners for listening. Hopefully, you will have some things that you can take away and put into action even this week. Until next time, just remember that leaders don't develop in isolation. Leaders develop from leaders, and that's what we're here to do. That is our mission. So until next time, have a great one.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.